This is Too Stubborn to Quit, a podcast that offers stories of resilience, reinvention, and the moments in life that force us to keep going. Each week we explore real people, real setbacks, and the stubborn determination it takes to move forward when life doesn't go according to plan. And if life has ever knocked you sideways and quitting wasn't an option, you're in the right place, because that proves that we're all too stubborn to quit. Hi, everybody. On this episode, we have a special guest, a person that I have known for, most of my life. His name is Mark Morningstar, and you'll see him there next to us. His story will actually stop you in your tracks when you start thinking about what he has gone through. Mark is the recipient of a live liver donation, and what he went through actually reshaped how he sees life, gratitude, and the sheer stubborn will that it takes to keep moving forward when the odds feel super heavy. Now, trust me when I tell you, this isn't just one of those miracle medical stories. It's actually a very human story, one that usually causes me to cry a little bit every time I tell it. But stick around, stay with us till the end, because it'll make you feel good. Mark's journey could change how you think about resilience, second chances, and what it really means to keep going. But before we dive in, please take a second to subscribe, follow, and share this episode with somebody who needs a reminder that quitting isn't an option, and that every share of this story helps those who need this story find it. So share, like, and subscribe. So with all that said, how is everybody tonight? Linda, you're in New Jersey with a dog, right?
3 dogs.
3 dogs. Cool.
3 dogs. Yep, picked them all up today.
And
so, yeah.
You picked them up in, Long Island? Long Island?
2 in Long Island, 1 in Pennsylvania.
Cool. So. And you're headed where?
Florida.
Well, that's at least warmer.
Yes, we're running for the sun.
Yeah, there you go. And Mark, I know where you are, but tell everyone.
I'm in my media room at my house.
Mark's right next door.
Hello, Mr. Mark. Hello, Mark.
How you doing, Linda?
I'm good, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's greatly appreciated.
My pleasure.
So, Mark, like I said at the very, very beginning, you have quite a story. Where would you like to start? At the beginning?
Sure, I'll do an abbreviation. I'll do an abbreviated version of what I usually tell everybody. But December 14th, I found myself in the ICU at the local hospital here. I had the night before threw a big batch of blood into the kitchen sink, and I realized that wasn't good. Long story short, ICU with a CT scan and MRI showed I had 2 spots on my liver. And the MRI showed that, yes, it was more than likely cancerous. Scared the daylights out of both myself and my wife. And I know it affected you too, Pam. But so very quickly, I found myself in Pittsburgh on 2 days after Christmas to meet with the head of transplantation out at UPMC. The doctor had come in and said, the Dr. Geller David Geller, he's the head of the operation unit out there. And he said to me, no bones about it. He says, you've got stage 3 liver cancer. You have cirrhosis. You have esophageal varices. It's all treatable. And I'm like, cool. But you'll need a transplant. It's like, okay.
So let me stop.
Even with all of that being thrown at me all at once, it was one of those feelings of like, at least he didn't say it was stage 4 terminal. And a wave of euphoria went from the top of my head down to my toes. So I knew from the start, just by talking with him, that this was different. It was bad, but it was different. Because I've talked to so many other friends and stuff that have gone through the cancer journey and have not ended up, successful.
But did it feel a bit like a gut punch anyway?
Yeah, yes and no. Just simply because I went with the expectation, fearing the worst, And so when he said stage 3, that's why I said it wasn't the tip of the iceberg. It was, I still had some breathing room left. And that's kind of the way I look at things from here on out. Is like there's a lot for me now. There's a lot of breathing room. As at that point in time, there wasn't any breathing room. I was facing death straight in the face. And so, at any rate, uh, fast forward, they had to do a couple different things, a couple different procedures to get me prepped that, before they could even decide whether or not I was available to do the transplant. I had to get what was referred to as a transarterial chemomobilization technique, which basically they went into my artery and went straight directly up to the liver and delivered a treatment of chemo. And so what we're going to do there, they said we're going to watch that for a couple weeks. And if it brings that stage down to a stage 2 we're looking for, then we'll proceed. Well, lucky me, it went to stage 2, and we had back and forth to state, to Pittsburgh. And next thing I found was at the end of March and the first day of April, I had to do 3 days of testing. It was all sorts of stuff. There was a stress test and everything, and that was one I'll never forget. If you've never had a stress test done before, I've never felt my heart pump as fast as it did that day. But it was quite the experience. Fast forward even some more. They said it would take about 2 weeks before they have a big conglomeration of people that talk about this and decide whether or not you're able to get on the national transplant list. And with that being said, 2 weeks went by, and it was just 2 weeks, and I got an email saying, "Hey, give us a call. We need to talk to you." It's like, okay, great. So I did, and found myself back at Pittsburgh saying, "Hey, for another appointment, you're on the list, and this needs to happen. This needs to happen. This needs to happen." And just little things, and we're like, okay, great. So ended up being after 2 weeks after that, which just completely flabbergasted me. Phone call came in the middle of the evening at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I all of a sudden like, whoa! They found me a liver. Okay, and this was not a live living donor. This was someone who was deceased or about to become deceased. How fast can you get here? I said, well, it takes me 3 hours to get to Pittsburgh, so that's it. Went there, went through all the preparation. Well, I shouldn't say all the preparation, but most of it. And doctors come by and said, sorry, it's not going to work out. I got to send you home. They had warned me about that in advance. Like,
I'll tell you what, Mark, that one hit me hard.
Yeah,
because
I know it did.
we were in New Hampshire, and you'd texted me and said that there was that you were on your way to Pittsburgh, and I'm like bawling my head off, and there was no signal where I was, of course, and I'm trying to find a spot where I can get to you and talk to you, and then I don't know, half hour after I was just bouncing around, you texted back and said, yeah, never mind. I was like, shit.
Yeah, we were bummed out too a little bit, so at any rate, but yeah, like I said, we were warned about that. And so it's like, that was number one. Very good. No more than, well, almost a complete month later, I got another phone call. Diane, my wife, was at work, and I got the phone call in the morning. Nurse out there says, hey, we've got another one. Can you get here? It's like, yep. So I gathered Diane up, and this time we were packed and ready to go. Before, we didn't have any bags packed. It was one of those small details that we didn't take care of. We should have. But this time we were ready to go. We didn't get any farther than Duncansville, and got another phone call. And believe me, these people out there take this serious, and it hits them just as hard as it does family members and even the patients themselves. She was literally in tears, telling me that, I'm sorry, I have to turn you around. It's not going to work out. So, and like I said, literally, she was in tears. But so that was two. So, and everything in that time period, with directions from UPMC on how to proceed with, you know, expecting calls from them saying, "Hey, we have a liver," and the other side of it, which was live living donor no, donation, which I never knew about. I learned
I
about it
didn't
the first
either.
day I was out there. Whenever I visited with the head of the department out there, Dr. Geller, I was looking on screen. I'm like, what? I'm reading the information board, and I'm like, are you serious?
Mm.
And it's describing in detail how they go about it, and it's like, okay, wow, okay, this is different. But anyway, one of the things that they decided, for everyone who is searching for donations out there, they don't want the patients. This is UPMC themselves. They don't want the patients to do the work. They want you to find what was referred to as a champion. Well, lo and behold, I knew who my champion was going to be, and it didn't take me very long to ask her, which was you, Pam. And she said, "Hey, yep, I'll take it." And
That's
so
what
she
I
grabbed the
do.
bull by the horns, and it was like bang, 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 bang. This was done. The GoFundMe page was set up, and just all social media was out there. It was being just plastered with all of this information, and I kept getting emails, and I kept getting phone calls. And it's like, oh my, what's going on, this and that. And I actually had a great number of people who contacted me. The very first one was one of my other former students, Eric Pollock, who lives up in Erie. He was the first one that, I mean,
It
he
was.
messaged me over the phone. He said, "Hey, I want to do this."
Hmm.
He went to apply, but then very quickly found out that he couldn't do it just simply because his BMI index was too high.
Yep.
And he was heartbroken.
Mm,
But
it
for
was.
me, it was very emotional in the effect that um, it was. I all of a sudden this outpouring of support just kept being thrown at me, and even Pam's son, Richard, had decided he was going to do some type of fundraiser, just something to do, and well, it ended up being, "Hey, why don't you do this for Mark?" And that's where we've been. So he
A
walked 100,000
100,000
steps,
steps. That's 54
through the
miles
borough.
between you and me.
How
Yeah,
many miles? Say that
50,
again.
54 miles in one day in
yeah,
24 hours.
Oh,
24
Oh,
hours.
snap.
he's ridiculous. He's done it 4 more times, but the
Yeah,
first one was specifically to raise money for Mark. And I don't even remember how much he raised, but there was a lot. And
it was a fair amount. It was a fair amount.
yeah, and
So yeah,
he and a bunch of the other band kids and his brother-in-law who's the high school band director, they made it all 54 miles, and a bunch of the other kids showed up and did 10 to 20,000 steps with them, and it was it was a whole group event.
yeah.
So how long did it take? How long did it actually take him
The
from start to
walk,
finish? Yes.
the walk.
Yes.
He started at midnight. We walked one of the laps with him. Mark and I did. Started at midnight, and he finished up at 7 o'clock that night. Mark.
Yeah, around 7 o'clock,
Yeah, around
7
seven.
p.m. Yep. So it wasn't quite 24 hours, but it
Geez,
was
they
long.
were they were killing themselves. Oh, and it
Oh yeah,
rained, and it thundered,
sore
it
feet.
lightninged. It
Yeah.
was ugly. But
Prior,
that was on your birthday on June
well, but
14th.
yeah, that was exactly what it was. Prior to that, though, they what was it? Just her spreading the news with everybody, out there on social media, um, had garnered a lot of attention, and so I didn't realize it, but before that event actually happened, um, like a week and a half before, one of my other former students and my son's best friend, um, came in for a visit, and I thought it was just the normal thing of just coming. He's coming in to see my son Jacob, and so they did. They went out and got some pizza, came back, and so I was my normal self at that point in time. I'm out relaxing and enjoying my time out on my deck behind the house here. And they got back and so he said, "Hey, tell me a little bit about your story here. What's going on?" So I did and told him about me getting tested and all that stuff. And he said, He said, "Well, I got some tests done too." I said, "Oh," I said, "What's wrong?" I said, "What's the problem?" Not realizing where he was going with this. And he said, "I got some testing done." I said, "Where at?" He said, "Pittsburgh." I'm like, "Wow." I said, "You got something serious happening too?" And he says, "No, at least I hope not." And I'm like, "Okay." and he said, and then it was because it was just he and I that were talking at that point in time. Diane was in the house, and Jake and Victoria were somewhere else. They knew what was going on, but they decided to stay inside. They wanted it to be just a one-on-one conversation. And he said, "Well," he said, "I got tested for you." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "I volunteered to be your donor." It didn't and I'm telling you honestly, it didn't faze me when he told me that. Okay, which is kind of odd. Uh, but I'm like, I mean, I knew what he was saying, but then I had just got done going out, or at least heading to Pittsburgh twice for two dry runs, so to speak. And I'm like, okay, well, he says, "I haven't got the approval yet completely, so I haven't gotten the phone call yet to let me know what's what. But the testing went well, and he said, so I'm just waiting on a phone call." And actually, that day, which was a Saturday, he was waiting on that phone call. It didn't come then, but it came later that evening, and he had already left by that time. So the next day, Sunday, he comes back, and again, we're sitting on the deck. And of course, though, in the meantime, Diane had found out from him too what was going on. Of course, though, she was in literal tears and everything, and but she looked at me. She said, "They won't let him do it. It can't possibly happen. He's too small. His
He's a
body
tiny
carriage
little
is just
guy.
too small."
He's pretty skinny.
Yeah, he's about the size I was whenever I was a teenager as well. I
Yeah,
was I
which
was a toothpick,
pretty
So,
skinny.
at any rate, yeah, At any rate, uh, he came back by again, and I thought it was just to pick up some of the leftover food that they had brought home from the day before. And so again, we're sitting out on the deck, and this time I was sitting right next to him, and he just kind of looked over at me and he says, "So what are you doing July 21st?" And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "That's the day." And well, yeah, it's just it's rough to think back about it, but uh, yeah,
It
it
was
hit me then.
remarkable,
It
honestly.
hit me then.
It,
So
it, it was it was probably one of the most heartfelt, selfless acts I've ever encountered in my life. Because Sean is a skinny little guy. Now
yep,
he's not a little guy. He's what, 31 now. But he
yep,
was mid 20s back, a couple years back, and he had a full time job, and he had to take a leave of absence
yeah,
from his job in order to do this thing for Mark. And so, but
yeah.
then, but it worked.
But it
It
worked.
worked.
Yeah, he. I mean, like Pam was just saying, he was a band director himself, and he was
Hmm.
just getting ready to prep his band to go through band camp.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, they said, "Yeah, we can do this." So he had to prep them and all of his staff and everything. They took over the program for him, ran the program for him while we were out in Pittsburgh getting this done. And that was just something super. I mean, he'll never forget that. His appreciation for those folks is immensely high. And and then, so we all, his side, his family, his mom and dad, my side, we were all getting things prepped. Okay, we had a day. We knew what we were doing. I had to take a couple more trips out to Pittsburgh to get some finalized tests and all that other stuff done, and some more discussions about this is what was going to happen. That's what was going to happen. And it was like, okay, fine. If there was any other questions that I had, now was the time to ask. It's like, all right, very good. So, but
Can I ask a question? Can I
Yeah,
ask a question? Can
yeah,
you go into a little bit more detail of what a live liver donor is and how that works? Because Pam told me last week, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. I had never heard of this
right.
before.
Yeah. So
So
a live living,
explain to
yeah, a
everybody.
live living donor transplant is just simply the person is, of course, living, and they take a portion, for liver wise anyway, they take a portion of the liver, okay, and actually a 63% that they take, and they take it from him or her, and they put it into the recipient, which was me, and they had to take my whole complete liver out, and they replace it with the portion that they pulled from him. Now there are some stipulations on criteria and stuff that have to be met with live living donor donation donors. One, your BMI index can only be so much. Okay, he was skinny, so he didn't have to worry. You have to be in pretty good physical condition. You have to be in uh, no major complications with any other organs or anything. No other major health problems that that they're concerned with. There's a list of them. It's not really a whole lot, but they're looking at something major. Okay. Uh, Alcohol, they don't want that either. Any drug addiction or anything like that's turned away. And so it's just a matter of, he had to go through the same type of testing that I went through. Okay. And then so what baffles me, and this is what baffles most people, is that how you can come to the conclusion that you're going to selflessly give this gift of life. You know, you're going to give a part of yourself to someone else just to save their life. How do you thank somebody, in that regard? Okay. How do you thank it? The best I can tell you for myself is that I'm an advocate on two different levels with a couple of different things. Other than doing this podcast here, which Pam had asked me to do, I've been invited to do two other podcasts. In fact, I had just replied to one here just before we actually got this one started.
Cool.
So this one, the person that I'll be doing that one for, is just, that's a cancer thing altogether.
Gee,
So
I hope we were first, Mark.
what's that?
I said, I hope we were first.
Well, yeah,
Okay, good. All right, cool.
You're my first podcast.
Oh,
But I was like,
I'm your
because
first. That's nice.
good one. But yeah, no. As far as the live living donor, like I said, that day that I was out there on December 27th, and I'm looking at that screen, I'm like, wow, really? Because first intuition, I had my brother with me out there, and the age limit you can be. Uh, it says anywhere from 18 to 60. Okay, to do this, that's all over. UPMC wanted they set their number at 55, so they didn't want anybody over at 55. And then anyone over the age of, I think, 73, 74, I think it is, uh, they're really taking a chance, trying to do that. But one, because it's the wear and tear on the body,
Hmm.
and so as far as any other real crazy things or things that they need to have done, it's pretty straightforward, and you wouldn't think that. But what made it special, and this is part of it here, is that where we had it done is called the Starzl Institute. There was a doctor by the name of Thomas Starzl, and well known. I mean, if you look him up, there's all sorts of. I mean, the man was smart. It was almost. I don't want to put it in this frame of context, but if you think of Frankenstein, okay, that's kind of like where his mindset was. But we're furthering medicine, for the better, and not just replacing, not just stitching, parts together. He his very first transplant that they did actually failed. Okay, and and this was back in '63, I think it was, somewhere around there, and but from there they learned so much. So every year over and over and over, the ball started to roll. Okay. And things got better and better and better. And it brings us up to now, which was, 3.5 years ago. By that time, they had done well over 500 and some, living donor transplants.
Now, I guess
500.
the thing that really kind of blew me away when you first told me about all this, and
Yeah.
we started talking, is that I had no idea. I mean, I knew that the liver was one of those organs that can fix itself, but I had no idea that it would actually grow back. And Sean's liver has grown back, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. It won't grow back the full 100%. They'll take it up to like a 99.5%. They're leaving that 0.5 percentage, for variation, whatever they're looking at there. But so that's where mine is right now. That's where his is right now. And, so he's doing well. I'm doing decent. I'm, there's side effects because I'm taking anti-rejection, medicine, to keep it going, because whenever you have a different body part put in you, our immune system wants to reject it, and
Sure.
we'll say no, no. So the meds are there to stop the immune system from working to reject the body part. But so far, so good.
Could you
Yeah.
tell? Could you tell? I mean, how long did it after the procedure was done? Could you that you started to feel better? I mean, could you tell almost instantly, or was it
Yes.
like 2 weeks? Or
No. And in fact, and this is, I kind of blew the doctors away. Uh, that the very next day, the my surgeons, two surgeons, uh, along with their entourage of people, okay, came in the room to see how I was doing. I'm just, fresh with, 45 staples in my abdomen, and it's like, okay, but question came from Dr. Umar right off the bat. Says, how do you feel? And I'm like, quote unquote, I said, Doctor, I feel like you just put a brand new, fresh set of batteries in me.
wow,
And he said, really? And I'm like, yeah. I said, that's how I'm feeling right now. And I wasn't lying, just simply because the numbers that they were gathering from,
yeah,
various equipment, it was showing that. So uh, right off the bat, before the surgery, I was told, it's like, what to prepare for. So they said, you were going to be in the hospital for 7 to 10 days. I was out in 5.
well, wow,
And because I lived so far away from the hospital, I couldn't be any farther than 2 hours away. So I had to actually stay out there. So I stayed at a place called the Family House, and they said, well, you're going to be out here probably for a month and a half. We were back. We were back in almost the end of August.
Yep.
nice, wow,
So, yeah, as I tell everybody, all of the things that could have gone wrong with me did. And did I have any warning signs? No, other than me being overweight. And that's what a lot of people hear from their PCPs, from their doctors, is that lose weight, gotta lose weight. Well, there's more to that than just that. And I've learned so much since then. And that's why I'm an advocate for doing, trying to head that off at the pass before the person finds out that they need the transplant. And so, with that being said, they, I don't know, there's so much information there, and people just kind of blow it off. Okay, and rightly so. We're being spoon fed this and spoon fed that, and it's like, oh, this is good, this is okay. It's like, well, no, it's not really, and we really need to pay more attention to it. But neither here nor there. But back to the living donor transplant stuff. It's a wonderful thing. Does it happen often? Well, like I said, they've done over 500. Okay, but there are, like, I mean, in the state of Pennsylvania alone, and this is not just liver. Okay, uh, 7,000 people on average are waiting for some type of transplant, whether it be kidney, whether it be liver, heart, lungs, whatever. Uh, in the state alone is over 7,000. Uh, so I'm looking at trying to take care of I'm trying to pay it forward, so to speak. So I'm trying to uh, take care of telling people, look, pay attention to this. Get your numbers tested beforehand. Don't wait. I mean, for myself, I didn't have any warning signs, but uh, all that could have gone wrong did, like I said, and then 7 months later, all that could go right did. So I look at myself as I'm one of those walking miracles. Tell you the truth, I don't know why I was blessed to
Sounds like it.
have this. It baffles me at times, and I've had the question posed to me before, because it's known as survivor's guilt. Okay, and that can come from either from a deceased person or live living donor. But it's different with the live living donor because the person's still there, the person's still alive. But so in my mindset, I'm trying to figure out I have to pay this back. How do I pay this back? And with what I'm doing with the advocacy that I'm in these groups that I belong to, that's the only way I know how to do it. I
So
thank
let's talk about that for a sec. So I know that you and I have talked about that whole pay forward thing repeatedly for some time now, a couple years, and you have become very involved in a number of these groups, but then you've taken it a couple steps farther. You've made personal connections with a number of people who are in need and are waiting for transplants.
yeah,
And really, Mark, what I want to know is how does that make you feel? I mean, it's got to be tough to relive it, but then how's it make you feel?
mentally unstable at times, and I'm very very upfront and straightforward with you in that remark. It's not that I'm having any mental problems,
Mm.
but again, it's part of that survivor guilt. It's a different format. Um, the people that I've contacted that have gone through this, and then there's a couple people that I have talked to that have passed away, just simply because there wasn't anything that could be done. But I just have this need to reach out and do what I can for these people, and I'll continue to do it. Each and every news story that I hear, I'm reaching out to these folks. Sometimes I hear back from them, other times I don't. Again, it's a personal issue with everyone, and you have to respect their privacy in what they're going through. And I completely understand that. Um, it hits different. Every story is different, and here's one here too. So as I told you before, and this is how I knew that. It's like, wow, I knew that I was going to be talking to more people farther down the road simply by this first connection that I had with someone. And it happened at the family house, which is where I was staying. So this is the 6th day after I got out of the hospital. And Diane had me downstairs in the eating area, and had gotten to make friends with a vet who was doing something at the VA out there. And so he talked to me later on that day. I had to go back for a follow-up appointment. But whenever I came back, he saw me. He says, hey, he says, there's someone I'd like you to meet. If you wouldn't mind talking with them, I would appreciate it. So long story short, he introduces me to this woman she's from Massachusetts. Just the day before, they flew her son because her son needed a liver transplant. They were getting this done at the VA hospital over there, not at UPMC. But she was so distraught and so strung out, she didn't know what to expect. Okay, and this is not the patient side, but this is his mom, and so it it took all I could do she sat down. She was just astonished that here I was 6 days before I had just got this transplant, and here I am. I'm sitting up at a table, and I'm eating food from the table, and it just blew her away. She was in literal tears, and she well, it just made me it made me cry too. I You can ask Diane, my wife, because it affected me for days there. The next few days afterwards, it's just like it's just so emotional. It's like, oh my goodness, And then you begin to think, and on a spiritual level, you begin looking at it, it's like, wow, why me? Why why did you pick me? Okay, and so I've got that thought process that I'm going through half the time. But that very first meeting with that woman, and I didn't talk to her again, and I regret it because I wanted to see her before I left, but I didn't have the opportunity to do it. I
Mm.
wanted to know badly how her son made out, and I never got to find that out.
Mm.
So that weighs on my mind a little bit. That's kind of a little empty space there that bothers me a little bit. But then here after that, I coming across, Diane comes across this person from Three Springs in need of a liver transplant. And he's in very bad shape. In fact, he was only given months to live. And so I reached out and made contact, talked with him, and lo and behold, well, he finally got a call, and it was New Year's Eve. And so on his way, New Year's Day, he was on his way out to Pittsburgh to get his liver transplant. And who was the first person he called? Me. That blew me away.
Mm.
So then,
But but there were a lot of people
it,
that did the same for you, though, too. I mean,
yeah,
you
and
met
I
people
have
that
to think back and keep that in perspective.
you never
Right,
thought you'd talk to. And I was
right.
telling Linda a couple weeks ago that I had not spoken with my cousin Charlie for, oh my, 20 years or so. And right before you got sick, Charlie and I made acquaintance again, and
I
he had told me
know.
that he had a liver transplant. And then a couple months later, we find out you're going to need one, and now suddenly he's in your life too. And
Yeah,
and
that
we're, it's like it was like it was all thrown down into this golden road, and we all kept
meant to
walking it. The
be. Right,
tumblers were there.
because I had thought the same thing. There were plenty. These days, I have a lot of time to think. So uh, that whole
God,
thought
I wish
process,
I did.
what you just got done talking
Sorry.
about you reconnecting with Charlie, okay, and then of course the visits came, and
Sure.
then the next thing I know, so Linda, I mean, if you want to know, I mean, other than me taking it upon myself, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, okay. This is like your whole thing here with this podcast, this whole
Yeah,
stuff, too stubborn to quit. That's
yeah,
where my mindset was. Okay, I've got to look at this at a positive light. And when I
yeah,
found out that her Charlie, okay, uh, had gone through this 15 years ago,
Hmm.
and here he is, right there was my inspiration, right there standing in front of me.
Yep.
And so anything that I could get from him, uh, I did. And then even from there, like Pam had said, we had so many people reach out. I had the director from Channel 6,
Hmm.
contact me and say, hey, a year ago, I was in your shoes. And so he is as of now, he is the only other person that I know that has gone through a live living donor transplant other than myself that I've
Mm.
personally met. So, but it's quite the venture. It is, as they call it, it's for me anyway, it was a cancer journey. Uh, but it's a journey in its own. And anybody with medical problems of any sort, whether it be kidney, I mean, again, a year had gone by after the transplant, and I'm back out to do my annual checkup, and I meet a person in the elevator as I'm going back up to my room at the family house there, and we get talking. Everybody talks to each other out there, and I said, "Well, what did you have done?" "Oh, I had a double lung transplant." I'm like,
Wow.
"Wow, okay." And then the next time I'm out there, I had a heart and lung
Oh
transplant,
my.
That's
and
right.
it's like, wow, So in a sense, what I went through was hard enough, but there's always someone worse off.
You're right about that. I left Huntington, and what I learned traveling the United States, that was the biggest thing I learned, was that it doesn't matter how bad your situation is. There are so many people out there
Yeah,
that they're quiet, they keep to themselves, but if you hear their stories, everybody has a journey. Doesn't matter
yep,
who or
Yeah.
where they are.
yeah,
Everybody has a journey,
yeah,
and everybody's journey is different. And sometimes sharing your journey with somebody else may help them just for 10 seconds,
yeah,
that breath that they need just to breathe and know I can make it through this.
yeah,
And
yep,
you're so right about that. It's just like we all have this one golden thread that runs through everybody's life, and if you
Hmm.
jerk it hard enough, you'll see all the people just line up. And some
yeah,
people you won't know. Some people you just don't know whether you're touching their life or not.
yeah,
And other times you'll be 3 years down the road and you get this. Hey, I know who you are.
Hmm.
And I remember when you did this, and man, that really, I got to thinking about that, and it's really bizarre to hear people say these kind of
yeah,
things, But yeah, there's so many people out there that have the world so much worse.
yeah.
So you just take a breath and thank God every day that you're getting up every day on this side of the ground.
Right. So, Mark, before we get to the websites and stuff, because I do want you to talk real quickly about the groups that you're involved with, and even with the live liver transplant group out in Pittsburgh. But if you had one thing that you could tell another person who is suffering from this type of an issue, what would you do? What would you tell them to give them hope? I
Be
know it's a hard
kind.
one.
Be kind.
Mm.
Understand that they're going through something similar that you may have gone through or are going through. Um, there are so many similarities in the stories that people do tell, along with the differences, and we're all on this path together. Okay, and the
Mhm.
difficulties that we face in life, um, it's not the end of the world. It's like this advocate group that I belong to. Our biggest thing that we tell everybody, because we literally have people showing up for the meetings every time we have a meeting, and they are scared to death, and they're looking and they're searching, they're reaching for answers. So understand that there's a lot of people out there that don't know what to do, and they need help. So I'm saying be kind. And again, this whole part of me facing death straight in the face and then having it turned around totally has changed my life. My life around it as how I look at life. I mean, yeah, I used to value life, but I'm also at the same time I'm not afraid of death either. That's gone for me, but I want to cling to life, and that's what there's so much to live for. Okay, all of the good, all of the bad that's out there. You have to find the good. And that a comment that I just said leads me to this thing that I had found from a person here that it's a quote, and it simply reads this. So I tell this to everybody, and it's pretty blunt, but it says you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy.
That's it.
Bingo.
That's
Okay,
so true. You
Mhm.
got it straight on.
Yep.
so
So, Mark, I have one more question for you. I have to ask.
yeah,
Do you have a bucket list?
not really. I
Really?
mean, I there. I mean, I think my wife does more than I do,
I know
and
that's true.
I just kind of go along, and I just kind of go along for the ride. Uh, I I just want to see things go well for people. That's the change in my life. It's so hard for me to sit back and understand that I have this second chance at life, and they're still trying to make it through their first.
Wow.
Overwhelming. So,
Clearly.
yep. So,
And that would be a really great place to end this. However, I want you to give us the websites of the places of the advocacy groups that you're involved with. What are they called, and what are the websites?
well, the one is, and this isn't live living donor transplant, but this is just the transplant people themselves, which is this is the C.O.R.E group, which is C.O.R.E, which stands for. Hang on a second, I've got it here. I'm pulling it up here on the. It's the Center for Organ Recovery and Education. Okay, so if
Okay.
you just type that in, it'll take you to the website. The other one, the other advocacy group that I have is called Liver Education Advocates.
Hang on, I'm writing. Liver
And that's,
education advocates.
yes, they're the main two. So there are other advocacy groups out there that I kind of tag along with, like on Facebook and all that stuff. And I've chit chatted with a few other people, and it kind of goes back and forth. But these are the main two. The liver education advocates are from Pittsburgh. Uh, they were so generous with me at first that I decided, it's like, look, I want to join your group. I want to help you guys out. So
I do know that from getting out there and preaching the word for you when we needed the liver was a whole educational process for me.
oh yeah,
I had no idea, like I said, when we first started this journey, that there was ever such a thing. And once I found this out, I mean, there's just all kinds of ways for people to help transplant victims or
yeah.
survivors. I guess the word is survivors.
Understand.
But there's so many ways for people to help. I mean, obvious, monetary. That's an easy one. That's an easy one. That's the one you do when you can't come up with anything else to do. You give them money, which helps them to feel better. The donor makes the donor giving the money feel better. But and I know that you struggled with that for a little bit, receiving that money because you
Yes,
felt that you weren't worthy of it. And
right.
remember what I said to you. These people have no other way to help you, and they want to feel like they can. And
It,
so
it took a while for me to understand that, but yes, you're right.
so that's the easy way. But obviously, if you think that, and I have a friend who just they saw this person in need of a kidney. She didn't
Yeah,
match her friend who needed the kidney. What she did, though, was she gave her kidney, which was a match for somebody else,
right,
Oh,
and
wow.
then that got another match for her friend. And so it was like a three-way transplant thing.
right. It's called a swap. That's what they refer to as a swap.
Okay.
And it happens with the liver the same way. It's designated. If you're willing to give your organ, and this person is willing to give their organ, and if you can kind of cross paths, that this helps this person out and this helps your person out, that's the swap, and that's how that works. And it's so simple, but and it doesn't have to be that. I mean, you can stay anonymous, or you can let the person. I've read many stories of where the people have actually went to meet their recipients and or donors. They
Mm,
met the day of.
yeah.
So I mean,
And then there's
it's very emotional. I mean,
there's one other. Oh, go
the one
ahead.
thing I didn't tell you with me and Sean was just simply this: the day of the operation, we're both sitting in pre-op, and the doctors come in and we sign our life away.
Mm,
I hate to put it in those terms, but it was like, yep, signatures signed, we're ready to go. Um, he and I turned. He's on my left side, and I'm on his right side. We just turned and looked at each other. And, so you ready to do this? And he said, "Yep." And that was it. 10.5 hours later, it was done.
Wow. Isn't that
It's
crazy?
amazing. It's amazing. I mean, truly is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a great, it's great. The whole way around, Mark. It's great.
And what I still get choked up over is obviously Sean. Sean was a very selfless donor, and so Sean, thank you. I know that you're going to eventually hear this, and we still appreciate you so much. But it was all of those other people, like you said, there were so many people that just they would call me, they'd call you, they'd call Rick, they'd call Jordan, they would call pretty much everyone. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Some of them wanted to have a bake sale for you. One of our friends did a T-shirt sale. I mean, it was just one of those things that we have. Everyone has to pitch in for Mark, and you're going to yell at me for saying this, but that is a testament to you, sir, for being that person, for being that kind to everyone else when they needed it. And so you can just sit there and take it because you have no choice. So, but it's true. I mean, people don't help people they don't like. So I'm glad that you're still sitting here talking to me and,
Me too.
can get annoyed when I put you on the spot like that. But,
Okay.
we have plenty to share moving forward. And that was my dog shaking like a jingle bell. Anyway, yeah. So speaking of my cousin Charlie, this is good news stuff. I think I told you guys all a couple weeks ago that his best friend buddy puppy, Athena, passed away around my birthday in the middle of November. And guess what we're doing on Saturday? We're going for a new dog.
That's awesome.
He's
That's
getting
always fun.
he's getting a little German Shepherd puppy, so he's pretty excited.
Lucy.
Lucy, and when she's bad, we're going to call her Lucy Fur.
That's a setup. Okay.
We'll have Lucifer and Lucifer and
Really?
Loki. It'll be bad. Anyway, Mark, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I mean that's pretty much it. I just as I go through my life here on out, it's just people want to hear my story, and I tell it in different varieties of abbreviations and this and that. Some people want more details, and it's like, okay, if you want more details, just give me a call. If you have certain questions, give me a call, throw me a text, whatever. I'll be more than happy to share the information that I am able to give, from my perspective. So.
And I will put in the show notes all of the websites that you can get in touch with these folks with. I'll put the UPMC Live Liver donation website in there because that has a great deal of information in it. And we really hope that nobody ever has to use it again. But we know that also that's not possible. So it's there. It's there when we need it. And we are so thankful for that. Linda, anything you'd like to add?
Mark, I just want to thank you again. I know that Pam and I both are just so thankful that you said yes to coming on the show.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because I'm like, listening to her spiel at the beginning of each of your podcasts is like, it's for women. I'm not a woman.
But you know what? Here's the thing, and Pam had it right. When we talked about rebranding a little bit, is that everybody in the world, unless you're only that 1%, everybody has something, and to share just to be able to share, I think is what's going to get people through. Times are just, so. Being able to share just a little bit of something good is a blessing. It's just a blessing. And I thank you. I know that it's a very personal thing. It's a very personal walk. And thank you for putting it out there for everybody else to be able to hear it and share.
Yeah. I appreciate being able to be one of your earlier podcasts, and
Yeah.
wish you well and much success on future podcasts.
All your future endeavors.
Yeah, all of your future endeavors. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and I hope your health continues to improve.
I'll go as long as the good Lord will, let me go. I've been given it, like I said, I've been given a fantastic gift, and I know we just got through Christmas, and that's, I mean, what a gift.
Absolutely.
True.
Yep.
So we got to do a little bit of business here. So if you've made it to this far in the podcast, and we certainly hope that you have, please drop us a line, leave a comment. We really love reading them, and we read every single one of them. And so leave us a note, leave us a comment. And if you would be so kind, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with everybody you know. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or any of the other podcast venues, please leave us a 5-star review. It really, really, really helps to keep this podcast going. So until next week, we really appreciate you, Mark, and we appreciate all of you who have tuned in to listen to Mark's story. See you next week. Take care.
Thank you.